Hi there, my name is Elyssa Nager, and I am talking to you from Eagle, Colorado. Um, I am an author of the book called Crushing Fleas, which I have up on the screen. It's a step-by-step guide back to peace, self-love, and the amazing you after an emotionally abusive relationship. I'm an entrepreneur, a digital strategist, and I'm also a Tony Robbins trained life coach. Um, First, I want to thank Kyung Wong for inviting me to speak here. What he is doing, creating this festival to raise awareness, abuse, domestic violence, domestic terrorism is amazing, especially right now, given the fact that domestic terrorism is up 15 to 30% worldwide due to the lockdown and stay-at-home orders. It's unfortunately still a worldwide epidemic. Domestic violence is affecting 30% of women and 20% of men. So why such a secret? Really? Kyung invited me here because I wrote this book. The book is about how to get out of narcissistic, abusive relationships. It's actually a step-by-step guide back to peace, self-love, and the amazing you, and the life of limitless potential that we all deserve to live. In the book I refer to abusers as fleas. First, I also want to say that this is my first time making this presentation. I recently launched the book about a week and a half ago. And I'd be super thankful for any feedback. You can just ping me directly on Facebook. So the book shares the steps that I went through to get back to the amazing me, to get rid of my flea, to get rid of fleas. So what does that mean? What does it mean to live a life of limitless potential? Well, to me, it means to do whatever you want, but do it with love and compassion for yourself and the people around you. In this life, you even have possibly compassion for the flea. It's a life where you let go of victimhood, not because what happened didn't happen, but to free up your amazing brain to think about things that matter, like the love you have for yourself, your family, and the amazing things right here that are waiting for you. Now, before I go any further, if you are faint at heart, you should turn off this presentation, because there are quite a few things here I'm going to talk about, and I'm not going to sugarcoat them, because it's important that they are not sugarcoated, because it's important that abuse isn't secret anymore, and that people don't feel like they need to keep it a secret, because these people are assholes. They're criminals. They are fleas, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's not you, it's them. We will only normalize people's experiences by speaking about it out loud. So here I am speaking out loud about my experience with abuse. I had fleas. Well, I was married to one. So the first question on everyone's mind is always, how do you get fleas? How do you attract an abusive person into your life? And my answer to that is always, you only need to be human. Because what do all humans need? We need love and connection. And fleas take advantage of this. In fact, their ability to take advantage of us is completely to do with our need for love and connection, and also our inherent belief that humans are fundamentally good. And what do they want from us? Why do they want to abuse us? They want our power. They want our sense of self. They want our intelligence. They want our beauty. They want our ability to be loved and be loved. They don't want love and connection in the way we do. What they want is narcissistic supply. They have no sense of self, and so they need someone to fill that giant hole that exists in their heart. Our beauty, our intelligence, our power is like crack cocaine to a flea, a narcissist, a psychopath, and a sociopath. Isn't that the most amazing realization? We are powerful. We have what they want. They want narcissistic supply. They want attention from you, negative or positive. It doesn't matter. In fact, negative is possibly more satisfying to them. And they will do anything to get it. And sadly, as many of you may be aware of, I mean absolutely anything. They will rape you. They will beat you. They will steal from you. They will destroy you. They will take your children, take your financial security. They will take away your dreams until you don't recognize you anymore. So the next question I'm asked is, why didn't you get rid of the flea? I mean, when you realized he or she was a flea, I mean, why are they so hard to get rid of? The flea's secret lies in the abuse cycle and the abusive system they create around you, so they can get supply from you, their fuel. Through the abuse cycle, they create a system that is based on addiction and fear and control and keeps you locked in. And yes, unfortunately, we do become mentally and physically addicted to our abuser. The abuse cycle looks like this: love bombing, devaluation, and we'll talk about discard later. It's a love-hate-love cycle. On a physical level, it's a serotonin cycle where your body is waiting for that next dose of serotonin. When they first come into our lives, they set us up by becoming everything we dreamed of. They drowned us in false love and hope for the future. They tell us everything we want to hear. They are charming. They are charismatic. They act loving. We trust them because that's what we want to do. We want to trust. We want to love. The female version is even sweeter, overly sweet, kind, endearing, possibly needy. The devaluation doesn't come until they know they have us locked in. And this can take months, maybe even years. Only then do they begin to show us their abusive nature and start to implement manipulation, violence, and control tactics. I go into detail about these tactics in my book, but it's all violence, power, and control, isn't it? During devaluation, they begin to change our brains, our physiology. Through their love, hate, and love tactics, we become addicted. So how do they change our brains? Well, mostly through words. They train us to become something else, something small, and they continue to become bigger. And often they start out small. They say things like, "You're not really good at making friends, are you, Elyssa?" Or, "You're not very close to your family. You aren't very good with money. Do you see how it all begins? Do you see how you slowly lose sight of your family and friends? And slowly over time, like some kind of poisonous drip feed that we take every single day, many, many times a day, we lose ourselves. We lose our power." So what about the power of words? I mean, it kind of sounds silly, right? Well, not really. According to Chloe Madanis, who started the Robbins Madanis Life Coach program with Tony Robbins, by just saying something, we introduce thoughts and physical feelings and mental consequences in another human being. So for example, if I tell you you're sad or you seem sad, you might begin to feel sad, even if you weren't sad. She calls this induction. And according to Madanis, this process of induction is at the core of most of the evil in the world. The definition of induction is the attempt to regulate the inner life of another person in order to preserve our own. You can also train your brain in powerful ways. Words are powerful. It's not, for example, Muhammad Ali used to say, "I am the greatest," even before he was the greatest. He trained his brain in a positive way. Eventually, he actually became the greatest. So the fleas don't just use their words with you, but they use them with your family, your friends, and the people around you. They create a system of abuse around you. And these people become the abuser's puppets. They actually become victims of the abuser as well, although indirectly. So we are locked in emotionally and physically, and we are afraid. The fear and the lies and the addiction change us. They change our brains. They change our physiology. They change the neural pathways in our brains. They train us to believe we are something we are not. How many of you heard from people who have been abused that they say about their abusive partners, "He has a really nice side, doesn't he?" Or "She has a really nice side." But she or he has a really lovely side. I can tell you I never say that about my current husband, who isn't an abuser, because I don't need to make excuses for him. All of his sides are nice. Yes, nothing is perfect. We have our moments. But I would never describe him as having a really nice side, because all of his sides are nice. And I would never say this only to make excuses for the bad ones. And this is the trauma bond at work. We are always waiting for that nice side to show up again. This bond is incredibly hard to break. It's both emotional and physical. And then the final stage of abuse occurs. It's discard. This is when they have broken down us down to nothing. They need to seek their narcissistic supply from somewhere else. They can discard us in a number of ways, by cheating on us, by leaving us, but it only takes a short period of time for them to find another food source. So how do you know you've got fleas? I go into this in great detail in the book, but it has to do with some of the things we've already spoken about: the love, hate, love cycle, the isolation from your family and friends, fear in your own home. Are you controlled by your flea financially, either through financial structures they have put in place or not letting you work? The fact of the matter is 99% of abusers abuse their victims financially. And did you know in the New Zealand family court system, in a psychological review, they will refuse to look at financial documents? Crazy, right? Totally crazy. You feel crazy at home. Your partner has a lack of boundaries. So although you're not allowed to talk to his friends, he can flirt with yours till the cows come home. When he does, you can call him out in it, but then he accuses you of being jealous or insecure. This is also part of crazy making. Do you have violence in your home? Sexual, physical intimidation, physical punching? My flea was too smart to ever punch me. He would just physically intimidate me because he knew this was the only way I could reach out to the police. Does your flea have a lack of integrity? Does he, for example, not pay his taxes or steal from local shops? If you can imagine he's doing these things, underneath, I'm sure he or she is doing much more, because fleas believe they are actually above the law. So do you feel lost? Do you feel alone? Do you cry a lot? If several of these things start you itching and scratching, chances are you've got fleas. So how do you get rid of fleas? How do you get back to the amazing you? Well, you start where you are. You retrain your brain back. You take back you. This is one of my favorite quotes, which is also in the book by Pema Chodron. It's from her book called Start Where You Are. Quote, "We already have everything we need. There's no reason for self-improvement. All of these trips we lay on ourselves, the heavy-duty fearing that we are bad and hoping that we are good, the identities that we so clearly cling to, the rage, the jealousy, and addictions of all kinds never touch our basic wealth. They are like clouds that temporarily block the sun, but all the time our warmth and brilliance are right here. This is who we really are." Do you remember they wanted us for our power, our brilliance, our beauty, our intelligence? Well, it's all still here. It's right there. The flea just made you believe you were something different. She or he trained your brain to make you believe you were nothing. The hardest thing to recover from in terms of abuse is this mental devastation. So you start right where you are with your beautiful soul. In my book, I talk about the fact you're on a mission to keep yourself safe. You're on a mission to retrain your brain and ultimately own amazing again and live that life of limitless potential. There's 15, maybe 16 steps in the book, and I'll go through some of them here at a very high level. So the first step is accepting that you are actually amazing. The second step is finding someplace safe away from the flea. That could be the home that you're in, hopefully. If not, friend's house, a family member's home. When I left my flea, for some reason, I was experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder, and that happens to many people who experience abuse, which for me just meant I was on high alert 24/7, experiencing extreme anxiety and panic attacks. And the only place I felt safe was in my twin brother's house. I have no idea why. And thankfully, they kept me up for a few months while I recovered. The next step is community. Community on an ongoing basis is, to me, one of the critical pieces of your recovery. I talk about in the book about a Vicki Kenny. She's a personal trainer and a sports nutritionist. And she used to be the manager of a gym in the South in Florida. And there were lots of people in that gym who were recovering from drug abuse. And she said it wasn't, necessarily the exercise or anything, but what really helped these people recover is they had a community of people like them that they could, visit every day. And I really hope that one of the most important things is that you go and seek out your community. And it doesn't matter if it's exercise or sports or reading books or, playing chess or whatever you love to do, but that you go seek out that community and support. The next thing is establishing a professional support system. The key here is finding people that actually understand abusers, what a narcissist is, what a sociopath is, a psychopath is, what they're capable of. And I urge you to take as many free introductions with psychologists and lawyers until you find one that is trained in trauma and abuse and narcissists and psychopaths. The next step is kick anxiety to the curb. For me, a huge part of this was realizing that I owned my own power and that I controlled my emotions. I learned this through a system of going to I was treated with neurofeedback, basically. And it only takes, 7 to 10 sessions, but I think it was probably like the 7th or 8th session. And what neurofeedback does in layman's terms is it actually retrains the neural pathways in your brain. And it didn't cure my PTSD completely, but what it did do is make me realize that I drove home one day in the snow. I live in the mountains, and usually that would make me incredibly anxious or even kick off sort of an anxiety attack for me. And after one of these sessions, the 7th or 8th one, I hopped in the car, I drove home, I got all the way home, didn't feel a thing, got out of the car, and I realized, oh my God, I just drove all the way home in dumping snow without an ounce of anxiety. And I literally jumped up and down in my driveway by myself, because at that moment I knew that I could overcome this extreme anxiety I was feeling. Some other steps in relieving that anxiety, let go of the stories. And by stories, I mean those self-limiting beliefs that you carry around, that your flea sort of trained you to believe. And I go into this in detail in the book. But for me, this is not just telling yourself, like, I'm great, I'm perfect, I'm wonderful, but it's also you going out and practicing things. So for me, I was terrified to just go out and be in social situations because I felt like such an alien in my own skin. And so what I did was I forced myself to go out in these situations, and I practiced. And I started out small by just showing up. And then I started talking to people, and then I realized, my God, you know what? Actually, people like talking to me. And I know this all sounds so silly to someone who hasn't experienced this, but it literally is a practice. So once again, please get the book so you can see in greater detail how this works. Practicing mindfulness, meditation, breathing, visualization. Beyonce and Sasha Fierce. Beyonce talks about the fact that when she goes on stage, she becomes somebody else. She becomes Sasha Fierce. Visualization used by sports people. Breathing, look up Wim Hof, who has done all sorts of amazing things with breathing. When you start to feel better about yourself and your body gets stronger, you're going to start wanting to eat better and exercise. Now, exercise for me is a daily thing. I mix it up all the time. I do yoga, I do mountain biking. I'm a huge mountain biker. But for me, that daily dose of endorphins too is another way you train your brain. Reminder strategies. So I am a huge crystal fan. I carry around these little crystals. If I'm going to a party, this is a smoky quartz. I stick it in my pocket, and Tony Robbins says, these reminders remind us only of what we already are. But if I'm ever, feeling a little bit stressed, I grab onto my crystal and it grounds me and it reminds me of why I'm here and what I'm doing and how amazing I am. Boundaries. So this is huge when you're dealing with a narcissist or a psychopath or a sociopath. And I urge you, if you're going through child custody issues, that you have an extremely, extremely detailed parenting plan written up. I go through this in the book. But the mega boundary for a narcissist is no contact. And that means if you need to deal with them, giving them yes and no answers. Now, this is very, very hard to implement, and it takes a lot of practice. All of this is a practice. And I still, to this day, 10 years later after he left, fall into this, I just want to, tell him what I feel and tell him what I know. And gosh, isn't he going to listen to me? But you know what? They will never listen to you. They live in this total world that they've made up for themselves. So that detailed parenting agreement is incredibly important. And then the next steps are create your vision and own amazing. So you can have visions, and this is all about manifesting the life you deserve. But you can have a vision for the next partner you want, the house you want, the career you want to have. But these are things you need to write down and revisit. And like I said, I can't do any of this justice here in a 45-minute presentation. But I hope you go out and get the book. So what is the big secret about abuse? Let's say there isn't one. Let's just start talking about it. It took me years to get over the shame and the fear. And I really, really went over and over in my mind to try to figure out what had happened. And then one day, through a lot of practice and all the steps that I've sort of covered off at a high level, I just let go. And I just remembered who I am, which is an incredibly beautiful, wonderful, intelligent human being that deserves a place in the world just like anybody else. And what this person did to me has absolutely nothing to do to me, absolutely nothing to do with me. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed the book. Please feel free to reach out to me. I would love to hear from you. I would love to support you. And that's it. Thank you.